Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. This is Kashif Kamran, and I welcome you all to this live session, which is currently going live on my YouTube channel. The purpose is to discuss the AAA, which is coming up on Monday, and this is a very high time as you prepare yourself for exams for March 2021. Now, I believe these are very stressful times, very nervous times, because you just have 48 more hours before you enter the day of exam. And at this point in time, the purpose of doing this session is just to take your Q&As, which you might have at this point in time, and which could be real important for your success in the upcoming exams on Monday. So first of all, I would like to wish you all the very best of luck and success for your upcoming exams on Monday, the AAA exams. And I believe at this point in time, you have prepared yourself sufficiently. But if you have any queries, you have any questions you would like to ask your tutor, you are more than welcome to ask it, because this session has been specifically designed for you and for your queries, right? So without wasting any time, I'll take on the questions which have already started to come in, and I'll be responding to them. And in between any question, if I have time, I'll keep discussing the tips for the final moments which you should be doing over the next 48 hours, and particularly the tips which you should be doing on the day of exam when you are actually attempting your real paper. So let's start on with the Q&A. The first question is from HT Khan, and he says that, Sir, I have done a lot of practice, still can't attempt the new questions, which is different. Decrease my confidence level. I don't know what to do with. HT Khan, I think I've been guiding students since I did my webinars for ACC Pakistan, which was in the first week of February, that you should focus on the recent papers, because that gives you the right rigor for exams coming up in March 2021. If you've done a lot of papers and you're still struggling with the new papers, that means you have put less time on the new papers, which should have been the vice versa. You should have put more time on the new papers, which is from the September 18 up to the December 20, because that is the right exam rigor for 2021 exams. So I believe you still have 2 days in which you can polish up the recent papers. You can go over the examiner answers. You can find where and in which particular area you are lacking. So I think in the next 48 hours, ST Khan, you need to give a lot of time to the recent papers, because that holds the key for success on Monday. Okay. Then the next question is from ST Khan again. He's asking, I think I'm failing it in advance, even studies a lot. No, I don't think so. You should be pessimistic at this point in time, ST Khan. These are nervous times, and probably the your body attitude is exactly what a student attitude is at this point in time, that you feel you lost everything. But uh, when you've prepared yourself, you have gone over the syllabus, you've gone over the course 2 days ahead of exams, you should not give up, right? Rather, you still have 48 hours. Sit down with recent papers, sit down with recent paper, and try to spend as much time as possible on the recent papers. You still have 48 hours, right? So you can still do it, right? So be optimistic, never be pessimistic. Okay, there is another question coming from Oko. When question asks implication for completion of audit, can I answer impact on audit report, or what else can I answer? See, Oko, when a question asks you implication for completion of audit, that is very true that the question is at the stage of completion. And normally in the intro paragraph, the examiner would tell you that the audit is nearing completion, or the report is to be signed next week. So you definitely know this is the last few days of the audit exercise. And the implication for the completion of audit would be that what further will you be doing now? So if there is an issue in the case, and the examiner says the implication for the completion of audit, so that means if you find an issue, suppose you find a fraudulent activity, just before completing the audit, or you find a financial reporting issue just before the completion of the audit, what will you do now? What will be your course of action? What steps will you take as a manager just before completing the audit when you find something as serious as that given in the case study? So, implication means the impact which will have on the completion of the audit. You might need to increase your skeptical mindset because you find something of issue. For example, at the very completion stage of the audit, you find that the client was involved in money laundering. So you might need to think about its implication, the implication of money laundering on the audit, or how would things go from now to the stage of reporting. So I think you should not discuss the impact on report, though you can just briefly discuss about the impact on report, because it's not a reporting question, it's a completion stage question. So you should just be focusing on what further steps you will be doing now towards the completion of the audit if you have found an issue. So I think the issue is to be worked upon, and that issue will guide you what further will you do now when your audit is approaching towards completion. I hope you're clear on that, Oko. But if you still want to raise another question, you're more than welcome. Okay, there is a question from a student, not know what is his name. I think you're very much into the aviation industry. Hello, sir. Can you tell me the use of analytical procedure for first-time client? I've read somewhere that AP isn't that useful for the first-time client. No, AP is must. AP at the planning stage is must. You cannot skip AP, whether it is a first-year audit or it is a recurring audit. Remember that analytical procedures help you analyze unusual fluctuations in the financial statement, which helps you identify the risky areas. So, analytical procedures are must at the planning stage of the audit and at the finalization stage of the audit, irrespective it is a first year audit or a repetitive audit, right? I hope I addressed your question. There is another question coming from Ankita. She's asking, sir, do we have to give a heading as briefing notes before writing the answer? Yes, you have to. So you will give a heading briefing note, and then you will say to, from, subject. So you have to give the heading on the top briefing note. Okay, there is another question from Shadi asking, do we show calculation for materiality? Not necessarily. You can just find the answer on the calculator and you can put the percentage that it is 5% or it is 7%. No need to show how you are arriving at the answer. So no need to show the calculation. Directly the answer would be sufficient. Okay, another question from Ankita. Do we have to answer every question with subheading? Is it okay to answer a question like a question on fraud or a matters to consider without subheadings? I think in a theoretical paper, Ankita, headings do make an impact, because in a theoretical paper presentation, and a good handwriting, if you're doing the papers on pen and paper, not computer based, then that sort of presentation really counts. So I believe headings are good. If you can give headings and subheadings, that's wonderful. But at some point in time, if you believe giving the subheadings will confuse you and will distract you from writing a good answer, then don't do it. But as a recommendation, you should do that. Okay. There is another question from Ankita. A lot of questions. I have completed 6 past papers and examiner reports and have read the technical articles. That's wonderful. Any tips for how can we make the best use of the time the next 2 days? Yes, the next 48 hours, Ankita, is very crucial right now. You need to do your self appraisal where you are. I believe you're rightly prepared, and at times giving a break is also very essential. So I believe in your capacity, when you've done everything, I think you should take a 24 hours break, which is very essential, because giving a break to your mind is very, very important. So take a 24 hours break, relax yourself, cool down, because that will really help your mind to work in the most effective manner on Monday. So I think nothing to be done. Just relax. Just keep revising stuff. If you have made some summaries, just keep going over things, because at times if you overload yourself, that is also a disaster. So I think it's pretty good time for you that you should sit back and relax now. Okay, there is another question from uh, Despina. She's asking, what are the main differences when we have to deal with listed or non-listed entities? See, uh, The listed and non-listed makes an impact on an ethical issue question, because there are certain services which are prohibited for listed companies and which are permissible for non-listed companies. So in an ethical question, if the examiner says it's a listed company, you need to deal that very carefully. In a risk question, the question number one, if it is a listed company, you need to be a bit alert, because there might be a situation in the case which increases the risk of management bias in a listed company, because normally the listed company window dress their financial statements to deceive the shareholder, but you need to be very watchful of that. In a reporting question, because we know the key audit matters is a very essential part of a listed company audit report. So if in a reporting question the examiner says ABC is an unlisted company, then obviously you're not thinking about CAM. But if the examiner says ABC is a listed company, there might be a situation in the case study in reporting where you might need to make use of CAM. So I think these are particular areas where the significance of the nature of company plays a very crucial part. So I hope you're clear on that, Despina. And if you have further queries, you can raise them throughout the session today. Okay, another query from Divya. She's asking, sir, what areas do we have to focus for other assignments? I'm finding that that areas are a little vague. If you can could guide me on that. See, for other assignments, the areas to focus on. See, most of the time, when you see other assignments, there is a very typical question in other assignments, which is procedures. So you should be very good on procedures. In other assignments, the examiner do ask for additional information. In other assignments, there is a very frequently asked question, which is matters to consider when your firm is invited for the other assignment. So I think that is a very important area. Particularly, you must have seen such questions in prospective financial information, in forensic. I think the question which came in September, December 19 exam on forensic even have a requirement, matters to consider when a firm is invited to perform the forensic investigation. So I think that's the syllabus area C, the practice management. So I think these are focal areas when it comes to other assignments. But you should know your syllabus area F very well, Divya. But if you are trying to ask which other assignments are important for this time, please do clarify me that. But if you're asking for what sort of questions comes on other assignments, I think you should need to focus on procedures, additional informations, and matters to consider when a firm is invited to perform the particular other assignment. So if that is a clarified answer, that's wonderful. Otherwise, you can put your question back again. Okay, another question coming from a student asking, any new technical articles for March? No, there is no new article published in between December exams and the March exams. The last time the article was published was Group Audit, which was just prior to the December exams. But I still believe you should read the article Group Audit and you should read the article Data Analytics. Don't take a risk. Okay, another question from uh, Eddie from Salau. He's asking, how do we differentiate between investment property and leases in trying to assess a given scenario? Salau, if you can put that question, because it's about financial reporting. So if you can put that to me on my WhatsApp group or on my WhatsApp number, that would be wonderful if you have access to that, because that sets like a financial reporting standard, which I need to go in and will take a lot of time, right? So uh, please put that on the WhatsApp. Okay, there is another question from Hassan Ahmed. Sir, I got 49 in last attempt and took the fast track course from you. What went wrong? I don't know. See, what went wrong is you are the judge of that, right? Because you were in the exam hall. 49 is a very close by failure. So that means technically one of your question went very bad or very average. It could be question two, it could be question three, but one of your question has gone below par. And that's the reason you stuck at 49. Now you need to reassess yourself where you went wrong, because you are the best judge where you went wrong. Normally, it's the lack of practice. Normally, it's a technical mistake you're doing when you're writing the answer. At 49, you have superb knowledge. But at 49, the problem is practice. You need to overcome that with a lot of practice, and you need to find that you do each of your question on a same quality threshold. If you do one question at a very good threshold, and your question number 2 or 3 comes down the threshold, then there is a risk that you might stuck at 49. I hope I've given you a clarity answer on that, Hassan. Okay, there is another question from um, Hassan Ahmed. Second question: If if in standard question marks of 5, and MTR weighs 3, how will I get the rest of the 2 marks? See, normally when you are looking at an audit risk, and you write the materiality, you write the risk, you write the treatment, write the risk and impact, you get 3 marks, right? The MTRI gives you 3. But at times there is an additional risk within the same situation. So from one situation, suppose you're working on impairment and there are multiple risk in impairment. So the maximum marks you can gain from impairment is 5, not more than 5. So if you try to write more, you need to be very watchful. So one situation, if have multiple risk, the maximum marks you can gain from one situation is 5, because normally when you write materiality, when you write the treatment, when you write the risk and impact, you get 3 marks. But there might be something uh, there might be double risk, there might be more than two, there might be more than one risk in a given situation. From an accounting treatment, there might be a risk of a recognition in an accounting treatment, or there might be a risk of a disclosure in an accounting treatment. Now certain accounting standards require something to be recognized as well as disclosed. So if you're writing that way, then you go to 5 marks. But normally one risk with MTRI is 3 marks. I hope I'm clear on that, Hassan Ahmed. But if you want to readdress your question, you can post it again. Okay, there is another question coming from Amira. When we are criticizing an audit report, and if a name of a director has been mentioned, can we write in the answer that rather than stating the director name, the auditor should just said management? Yes, exactly. That's the total right perspective you have, Amira Asaf. Okay, the next one from Oko again. Should I know about consolidated cash flow? How important is that? No, not at all. You should not be worried about the consolidated cash flows. Okay, the next question from Sirhan Javed. Sir, in the first question, if they ask for ratios, will they give us marks for only calculations? No, because alone calculations is useless. It says utilize the analytical procedure. So utilizing the analytical procedure means that you find a ratio and then you comment on that ratio to find the relevant risk, that what is understated and what is overstated. Alone ratio will give you nothing. Okay, another question from an Anshita. She's asking, sir, should I start with section A or B for the exams? It's totally up to you. Examiner says you should start with your strongest question first. So you can start with A or you can start with B. It's totally up to you. But whatever section you start with, be within the time management. Okay, there is another question from a student. Okay, that's simply thank you for your response. Moving to the next question from MJ Khan. The student is asking, sir, what if in case we don't know the exact accounting treatment in a matter to consider question? What should be the strategy? See, if you don't know the accounting treatment, at least you know the materiality. You can score a mark on materiality. And probably if you don't know the accounting treatments, at time you might be capable of picking up the risk, or at times you're capable of picking up the impact on the financial statement. So if you don't know the accounting treatment, you are losing 1 mark only, right, in a question asking for matters to consider. So you're just losing 1 mark for accounting treatment, but you can still gain the remaining marks. So don't come under panic. If you don't know an accounting treatment, ignore it. Leave a space. And at the end of the exam, if you have 4 5 minutes at the end of the exam, come down and reconsider something. So I think it's just a matter of 1 mark. So you should not be worried about it. Okay, another question from a student. What do we do if a component of an auditor is not significant one? Examiner will not give you a component auditor component which is not significant. So don't worry about it, because if it is insignificant, we do nothing. So why will examiner give you a situation where you do nothing? Okay, there is another question from a student. He's asking, When writing a list of audit procedures or evidence, can we write in bullet forms? Yes. Some answers from examiners are bulleted. Yes, procedures can be written in bullets because procedures are bullets. Evidence in the working paper file is bullets. Actions can be written in bullets. So there are few things in AAA paper which can be written in bullets. Okay, moving on. Next question. Uh, Nicholas is asking if the company is not is if the company is not make entry for right of use of asset and given scenario is immaterial in is uncorrected misstatement, but the company is in an aircraft company. Uh, will that affect the implication of the audit report? See, if something is immaterial, then that will not impact on the audit report, because in the exam paper, you just need to find the materiality in a reporting question. If it is material, it will lead to an impact on the audit report. If something is immaterial, it will have no impact on the audit report, right? The next question from Oko. For a quality control question, um, I know this is this issue, but I cannot explain properly why it is an issue. How can I improve it? See, Oko, you can just read some of the examiner answers 48 hours before the exam paper on Monday, that how the examiner develops a quality control issue. If you pick up a quality control issue, that's good. Go and read the examiner answer, that once the examiner picks the issue, what he do next, how he develops a point. Don't look at the length, just look at the development of the point, that what he do next, and you should do the same, not in the length of the examiner, but you should find your own way of writing the answer. So I think at this point in time, the best way you can overcome your fear is just read one quality control answer of the examiner. I hope you're clear on that, Oko. The next question, again from Shadi, asking where a question has a spreadsheet and a Word document for answers in its computer-based exams. What is the spreadsheet for? Is it for the calculation of analytical procedures? Yes. If the question asks you utilize the analytical procedures, you can work upon your analytical procedures in a spreadsheet. But most of the time, what you are using in the AAA paper in a computer-based exam is the Word document, not the spreadsheet. So spreadsheets, I think, will only be used if a question asks for analytical procedures, else you are not using the spreadsheets at all. Okay, there is another question from Sadaf. So what is the position of the other meta paragraph in the report? Sadaf, see, the other meta paragraph comes before the responsibilities of the management and the auditor. So just before you start the responsibilities of the management and the auditor, you put the other meta paragraph. So it's towards the end of the audit report, right? I think you should be placing it way down just before you start the miscellaneous part of the audit report, where you start writing the responsibilities of the management and the auditor. You can even WhatsApp me so I can show you the picture where it is exactly comes in. There is another question from Anshita. She's asking, sir, there are any current issues to look for March? No, not at all. So far, so forth, no current issues for March 2021 exams. And current issues are not a regular feature of AAA exams. It's not like you get them in every exam sitting, so you shouldn't be worried about it. Okay. Another question from Fiona. So, which PTP webinar has analytical procedures in the risk question number one? Fiona, it's very difficult to recall at this point in time in which particular webinar I did the analytical procedures, but I've done it. But I'm really sorry I could not just recall it at this point in time in which particular webinar I've done it. I've done over 11 webinars with ACCA, so it's extremely difficult in which one I did that. So I hope if you are on the WhatsApp group where lots of students are there, they might help you down with it. Okay, there is another question from a student asking, do you think it's a disadvantage to write the exam without without a physical calculator? If you are giving a pen and paper exam, you should have a calculator with you, right? Because at times you need to calculate the materiality and you need to do the analytical procedures. So I think it's you should have a physical calculator with you. Um, and I think in the computer-based exams, I'm not clear about the rule whether the ACCA gives you a permission of using the physical calculators in a computer-based exams, or you have to use the on-screen calculators. Okay, there is another question from Ankita asking for due diligence. Could you please guide me which webinar I could watch aside from March 2021? Again, a difficult question, Ankita, because I cannot remember in which webinar I did the due diligence, even in the last one, the March 2021. So I think that's perfect. And I think in the March 2021 webinar, when I was doing due diligence on a particular day four, I did mention about the previous webinars to watch. So I think at the start of the day four, I must have shown you the links of the previous webinar, which you should be watching for due diligence again. So I think you can get your query resolved from that point, from the day four of the webinar. Okay, Nicholas coming again with another question. So examiner reports said to avoid except for, but why in the past paper for reporting answers usually state qualified with except for paragraph? Yes, not alone except for, because a lot of times the student says except for. The auditor should issue an except for opinion. It's not an except for opinion, it's a qualified opinion, but the language of a qualified opinion is you start it with except for. So you should write both. Either you say the auditor issues a qualified opinion, that's perfectly fine, or you should say the auditor issues a qualified opinion with which is an except for opinion. So both of them, but the proper terminology is a qualified opinion. So I think you should stick to that, because a lot of time the student says auditor should issue an except for opinion. There is no except for opinion, right? The except for is basically how you start writing a qualified opinion. So I hope you're clear on that, Nicholas. Okay, another question from Chipuzu asking, hello, sir. For the number one question on planning, is it okay to answer it out of order? I saw a video where it was advised that we answer the risk part last. No, no, not at all. See, technically, because you're writing the answer in a format of briefing note, so you need to structure the briefing note in a logical order, A, B, C, D. Because if you break the order, you might lose a professional mark for briefing note. But having said that, if you don't know the A part, or if you're weaker on A part and you want to start with the B part first, then uh, try leaving some space, try leaving some pages. If you're giving a computer based exam, you can leave a space. If you're giving a pen and paper exam, you can leave some pages and come back to the A part later. But I prefer that you do it in order, not break the order. Okay, there's another question from Dibya. Sir, is it 1 mark for each point from question 2 onwards? Mostly, I think 90% marking scheme in the AAA paper is 1 mark per point. Mostly. I think it's only risk where you get a 3 marks risk or a 2 marks risk, or a business risk is worth 2 marks. But mostly you look at the other topics: reporting, ethical issues, professional issues, quality control issues, actions, procedures. They're mostly worth 1 mark. So most of the AAA paper is around 1 mark. Okay, there is another question from Ankita asking, any recommendations on the order in which one must attempt the paper if I'm comfortable with concepts? My advice to students is you do the paper in order. That is question number one, then two, then three. That's my advice, because when I was a student and when I look at the place winners who have got very good marks in the AAA paper in recent past, they all do paper in order. But examiner do mention this in the examiner report, that the student can start with the strongest question first. So it's totally up to you then. Okay, another question from Anshita. What does its implication means in an exam question? What is the marker actually looking for as an answer for this question? See, implication means an impact. There might be an issue, there might be a problem in the case study. So the implication is the impact of that issue on the process of the audit, or the impact of that on the audit report. So it might be an implication for the audit report, or it might be the implication for the completion of audit. So you need to realize what is the problem and what is the impact of that problem on my remaining audit, or what is the impact of that problem on my audit reports. You have to read the question very carefully. The implication for what? But literally the implication means the impact of something given in the case study, either on the remaining audit or on the audit report. I hope you're clarified on that. Okay, there is another question from Ankita. In an audit risk question, if one of the risk is an absence of a disclosure, Is it right to mention that the risk could result in a material misstatement of a financial statement? Absolutely, Ankita, because if a disclosure is incomplete, or if a disclosure is inadequate, or if the disclosure is not at all given, then the financial statements are materially misstated, right? Because for a disclosure, there is no understatement and overstatement, right? So for a disclosure, you definitely write that the financial statements are materially misstated, right? So that's how you go about it. Okay, that's wonderful, right? To look at so many questions coming 48 hours before your actual exam starts on Monday. And it's really good to see that all the questions you're asking are very specific in particular questions and not like hypothetical questions. So that means you're real uh, well prepared for your exams coming on Monday. And you're trying to ask tutor some very particular questions, which gives me a thought process that you're all preparing yourself in the right manner. Okay, another long question coming from a student asking in ethics question regarding a listed company. Is it always prohibited to provide additional accounting, payroll, and valuation services, but the firm can provide other non-audited assignments like a due diligence review? Yes, due diligence review, review of prospective financial informations, these are permissible services. Forensic audit, these are permissible services. That's why it's part of your syllabus. But a payroll service to a listed company, a valuation service to a listed company, an accounting or a bookkeeping service to a listed company, by default, they're prohibited. Okay, there is another question from Gomez asking, sir, please explain the relevance in relation to the audit of performance information. See, relevance means that the performance information is relevant to the intended stakeholder. So if you are publishing performance information as part of your annual report, so the performance information should address the need of the relevant stakeholder. So just like, I hope you remember the December 15 question, which was on the Rothko University. So the Rothko University was publishing their graduation rates, their academic performance, their distinctions, how many student got distinction. So I think that was a very relevant information for a university to publish, because that will help them in taking the future admissions. So any information you publish should be relevant in accordance with the applicable laws and regulation, or relevant in accordance with the need of the stakeholder. So I hope you're clear on that, Gomez. Okay, there's another question from a student asking, PFI review with safeguards and no material impact on financial. PFI review is a permissible engagement, right? So it's simply permissible. No material, no immaterial in the case of PFI review. Okay, there's another question from Chantal. How will we know what is understated or overstated within the ratio? Is it easier to comment on the trends on the ratios, but how will we know the risk associated? See, if you're working on a gross profit margin, for example, generally, in a gross profit margin, when you look at the numerator and the denominator, one of them is revenue, right? And you need to realize that in a gross profit margin, it could either be revenue, which could be overstated, because generally revenue has an inherent risk of an overstatement, and the cost of sales has an inherent risk of an understatement. So I think you need to know by default that assets are overstated, the liabilities are understated, the income is overstated, and the expenses are understated. That is the journal risk. That is the inherent risk. They might behave in a different order, but this is journal. This is inherent. So I think if you know the numerator of a ratio and you know the denominator of the ratio, and you can exactly see what's happening in the case study. For example, you find the interest cover, right? And when you find the interest cover, and you watch the P&L of the company. In the P&L of the company, the finance cost was static. Now, after you find the interest cover, you should comment that because the finance cost is static, thus the finance cost is understated, because finance cost is one of the component of the uh, interest cover. And in the same way, when you find the GP margin, and after you find the GP margin, you saw the revenue, and the revenue was increasing a lot. So you say, okay, in the GP margin, the risk could be because the revenue is increasing a lot. There could be a possibility that the revenue is wrongly recorded or is early recorded, and thus the revenue could be overstated. So I hope, Chantal, you are clear on that perspective. Okay, moving onwards, there are loads and loads of questions. So I just need to focus on where I left with my last question. Okay, just you need to give me 1 minute because I just need to reconcile where I was basically, where I was taking the question from Chantal. Okay, Shedi is asking a question. In March 20 paper, the company was planning an acquisition which was highly likely to be successful and was to be completed a month after the year end. Isn't this an adjusting event? No. The acquisitions cannot be taken as an adjusting event because there is a lots of things to be done. You might even don't know that in the final stages of the negotiations, the acquisition fail. So you have to treat the acquisition as a non-adjusting event if it is to be acquired after the year end. Okay, there's another question from Dibya. The other information paragraph is something about financial statement and management report. What is the OMP paragraph? The OMP paragraph is about the change of auditor. If there is any change of auditor, that should be reflected in the OMP paragraph. Okay, there is another question from a student asking, how many risks should I evaluate and write if a question is for 26 marks, excluding the presentation marks? See, 26 marks, there are 3 marks risk and there are 2 marks risk. So the maximum 3 marks risk you can write is like 4 in an exam paper because the examiner says the materiality marks are capped up to 4. So the maximum 3 marks risk you can write is like max 4. So that means 3 multiplied by 4 is 12 marks and the remaining is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 7 risk and 4. So you should be writing something around 11 risk for a 26 marks answer. Okay, physical calculators are allowed according to the exam docket. So it's good if according to exam docket, the physical calculators are allowed, then you should take them because in AAA, you might need them. Okay, another question. Sorry if this is wrong to ask. Do you have a note for some of the journal audit procedures which we can use as an answer for most of the questions? No, see, there is nothing like a journal procedure. It's all about case because anything the examiner will ask you will be given in the case. And you need to read the case and extract the procedures out of the case study because I normally say procedures are case specific. You cannot have a rote learn list of procedures, right? So I hope this must have disheartened you, but that's how the AAA paper works in. Okay, a question from Azan. Sir, how would you suggest me to read an examiner report? See, the best way to read an examiner report is that you sit with a green pen and a red pen, right? And take a printout of the examiner report. And whenever the examiner says the student should not do this or something in negative, just underline that in red. And if the examiner says the students should do this, or the examiner appreciates the previous students by saying this was done wonderfully well by the students. So anything appreciated should be underlined in green. So by the end of the day, you will have lots of reds and lots of greens. And you know, okay, the red means I should not do this, and the green means I should do this. So that's how you can have a critical analysis of the examiner report. And after every examiner report, make a summary on your writing pad. Okay, these are the do's and these are the don'ts. Okay, there's another question from a student, Tamana. Hello, for question 2, if we are confident in different paragraphs and what they contain, is that enough or should we need more knowledge? I think that's perfectly enough. If The next question from Azan. I have said this paper multiple times, but my scores are in 40s. I just don't see a way out. Azan, I've been discussing the same issue with you in my previous Facebook live session as well, because I think you're attempting exams in June, right? So it would be very appropriate for me that you contact me after March exams are over and we sit down and we have an online discussion where I can find a clue for you, because I think your clue lies in practice. Your clue lies in the tutor checking your paper, and your clue lies in reading a lot of examiner reports, because I think that's the only way you can get into the 50 bracket. Okay, there is another question from Oko. So, can I say that it is material to SOFP or material to financial statement, or should we say no? It's perfectly fine if you say it's material to financial statement. That's perfectly fine. Rather than you say it's material to the P&L or it's material to the balance sheet, I think it's perfectly fine to say it's material to the financial statement. Okay, there's another question from a student. I find it overwhelming I find it overwhelming. Practice question one on CV platforms, so many windows needed, and all exhibits plus spreadsheets to see the variances plus the word processing windows. So much delay in navigating through all the info. I really believe that's the case, right? But you need the right amount of practice on the practice platform, because if you have done it multiple times, probably you might have found some way of saving time, because yes, you need to open a lot of windows and close a lot of windows down. You need to navigate through a lot of information, and I think through practice you might find some of your own developed ways where you can close down some of the windows, and you might navigate on a, a slighter less information. I have done some videos on my YouTube channel, even for the computer based exams and how you hold the practice platform. If you can go and watch them, might help you. You might find a constructive tip at this point in time, which might be wonderful for you. Because in Pakistan, we are starting with computer based exams for AAA from June. So I will be doing some rigorous amount of videos and rigorous amount of practice sessions on computer based platform for the student help, not just in Pakistan, but throughout the world. Because in Pakistan, March is the last exam sitting where we're going with pen and paper, right? So, but still, I have some videos on my YouTube channel where you can find some constructive tips on how you can effectively use the interface of the AAA practice CBE platform. Okay, there's another question from Nimi. She's asking, sir, please tell us how to comment on the company's liquidity position of the company, especially on the gearing ratio, finance cost cover. See, tell me tell us how to comment on the company's liquidity position. The liquidity position is connected with the current ratio, right? So if you want to comment on the liquidity position, you need to see the current ratio or the quick ratio, or there might be something in the case paper about the cash flows of the company, about the negative cash flows of the company, which can really help you down with the comment on the liquidity. So when you're commenting on the liquidity, you can think about the current ratios. The gearing ratio can demonstrate your gearing risk, or the gearing ratio can demonstrate that you're relying too much on the debts, and that is the reason that you have insufficient working capital, or you need to rely a lot on the debts. So that means you are low on your cash balances or on your cash reserves. So that's how you can find it out from the gearing ratio, perhaps. Okay, a question from Sirhan. XYZ will modify the auditor opinion. This will result in a qualified opinion. This will result in a qualified except for opinion, or only a qualified. I believe only a qualified opinion. Just stick to that, Sirhan, would be wonderful. Okay, another question from Nicholas. Listed company reporting. There is only one CAM highlighted in the auditor report. Will that affect the quality? No, not at all. See, uh, CAM, you cannot delete CAM from a listed company audit report. Even in Pakistan, when I look at the annual reports of listed companies in Pakistan, some of the listed companies have like 4 to 5 CAMs. Some of them has just two, some have just one. But see, key audit matters will vary. And probably when you're doing a first year audit of a listed company, there might be a lot of key audit matters. Gradually, the key audit matters will go down to very few. So it's not like you should have a list of key audit matters, but even if it is one key audit matter in a listed company, that's perfectly fine, because you cannot forcefully identify the key audit matters even when you're doing the real audits. Okay, there is another question from Gumis asking, so please give some guidance on what to write in the introduction and conclusion of the briefing note. See, in the introduction is your objective, means your requirement. So normally you write in the introduction, the purpose of writing the briefing note is to evaluate the audit risk, comma, describe the audit procedures, comma, discuss the ethical and professional issues, and whatever. So it's just like your requirements, that the purpose is to do this, comma, this, comma, this, and this. So it's just like 2 to 3 sentences max, and you write up the introduction. So the introduction is just about the purpose, right? And the second thing is conclusion. Conclusion is just the summary of the key things you found in the requirement A, B, C, D. How long the conclusion should be? Just like 3 sentences max. But remember, conclusion is a sum up of the key problems, key risk, key ethical issues you found when you were writing the whole briefing note from A to D or A to E in that case. I hope you are clarified on that, Gomes. Okay, another question from Mariam asking, can the question on critically appraise the audit report, wherein positive points could be added as to a point? No, I think in a critical appraisal of the report, you just need to look at the weaknesses, the shortcomings, and you need to discuss why it is a shortcoming and give a recommendation. Okay, there is another question from uh, Ankita. She's asking, sir, for procedure on KPI in the audit of performance information, do we have to give a few common procedures and then KPI procedures, or can all procedures be KPI specific? All of them have to be KPI specific. Okay, there is another question from and Anshita. She's asking, if I am time pressured and I leave some paper in the middle of a question, thinking to attend it later and being unable to answer it later, will I be losing marks, or should I cross off these pages at last? No, you will not be losing marks. Don't be worried about it. There's no negative marking in the AAA paper, right? No need to cross it off. If you have time, you can cross it off just before you wrap up your exam time. Krish asking, uh, what should be the start of comment on sufficient appropriate audit evidence and recommend the action should be taken by the auditor? Question. Yes, comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence. When you read the case, there might be some shortcomings in the evidence gathered by the audit team. So you are commenting on the shortcomings which were in the evidence gathered by the audit team. So you're commenting on why the evidence was not sufficient or why the evidence was not appropriate, and you're justifying what the audit team should have done. So comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence is just to criticize the evidence gathered by the audit team and to identify the shortcomings and the weaknesses in the evidence gathered by the audit team. So you comment on that, and every comment gives you 1 mark. And recommend actions means what further actions could have been taken by the audit team to address the problem or to address the issue which was in the case paper. I hope you're clear on that, Krish. You can raise your question again. Dibya, sir, how can we determine which ratio we need to calculate looking at the question? See, ideally, examiner says that the student should evaluate examiner answers to see the right definition of ratios to do in exam paper. I think most of the time, the data you have in the AAA paper, whether you have the complete financial statements or you have a partial financial statement, you can calculate the gross profit margin or the operating profit margin. So that's one. I think in most of the time you can find the interest cover. At times you can find the effective tax rate. At times you cannot find the effective tax rate. Now, when you put yourself to the balance sheet, I think current ratio in almost every case is possible, and the gearing ratio. So I think these are the ratios which are like very regular for the AAA exams. Okay, a question from Wilfred. Feeling so nervous for exams. Definitely, this is high time when you feel nervous. 2 days before exams, 48 hours before exams. What else can you expect? Panic attacks, stress level going up, uh, thinking as if you forgot everything. I think this is quite normal exam behavior. I've prepared very well when I sat for the first 2 times, scored 46 marks both times, feeling unprepared this time, but I've revised some questions many times already. I totally agree. See, when you're preparing yourself for the third time, honestly, every time you open something, you get a big distraction. I've done it. You open a question and you say, oh, I've done it. So I think that distraction uh, is something very normal. And I think that is the distraction which is concluding at this point, that you believe that you've underprepared this time. I think you're not underprepared because you've given 2 exam sittings, and that means you have a load of knowledge here. So eventually, you know a lot of things already. But for this particular exam, you prepared less because you already have a pool of knowledge. You already have a pool of experience coming from your last 2 exam sittings. So I think you should not be worried about it. And I wish you best of luck and success for your March 2021 exams. And I hope you get through this time. Okay, another student. So do you have any summarized notes for ICE 12, particularly deferred text? If you would please share. Okay, I'll try to find it out. I believe I have it, but again, you have to drop me a question on my WhatsApp groups, or if any other student have it. So please help this student in need. Okay, Nicholas coming with another question quite lots of questions from Nicholas. So I've even remembered your name now. Reporting question. Lack of disclosure will result in a modified report. Why fraud, given scenario is fraud is immaterial in previous paper, will not result in a modified audit report? Yes, because in that paper, the fraud had a value, and that was an isolated fraud. So if there is an isolated fraud and a fraud has a value and the auditor is very conclusive on the value, so you need to find the fraud in terms of materiality. If it is immaterial, then obviously it will have no impact on the audit report. Disclosure is like qualitative. Fraud is like numerical. It's like numbers, the amount of loss through fraud. So you have to look fraud differently and a disclosure differently. Okay. Nimi coming with another question. Please tell us about subsequent events adjustment. Subsequent events are of two types, right? Adjusting and non-adjusting. The adjusting events are adjusted in the financial statement because the condition of those exist at the balance sheet date. And a non-adjusting event is the one for which you need to give a disclosure. If no disclosure is given, then the financial statements will be materially misstated. Okay, another question from Christabel. How should we prepare in these last 2 days to be as efficient as possible? I think, Christabel, these 2 days are for fine tuning. Nothing new can be added, nothing new can be done. I think it's just about doing the icing on the cake. It's just like fine tuning yourself in these last 2 days. Nothing extra. Either you cool down yourself or just do the fine tuning of whatever you've done so far. It's just like to sum up, pack up things, right? It's just like the finalization stage of the audit. We start to pack up things. Okay, another question from Nimi. What are journal and specific procedures in performance information? There are no journal procedures in performance information. It's all about case study. You look at all the past papers on performance information. You had plenty in the case to extract specific procedures on performance. But there is an article, Audit of Performance Information. In the article, the examiner has given you a list of procedures, but those list of procedures needs to be tailored to a case. You cannot just write them the way they're given in the examiner article. Okay, another question from Fiona. So what would fraud that's immaterial needs to be disclosed in the audit report? No, not at all. Anything immaterial doesn't affect the audit report. Shadi, please share your WhatsApp number so I can drop your message and help you share me the links. Okay, I try my best to share my WhatsApp number with all of you so you can put me a query. But okay. Just dropped my number in the chat box if you can get access to that. There is another question coming from Oko. Oko is asking, obtain, inspect loan agreement to confirm the amount of outstanding loan. Can I use both words? Is it still the same procedure? Yes, it's still the same procedure. Don't use the word obtain. A procedure has to start with action. So I think inspect is the action. Obtain is not an action. Obtain means you're gathering information. So start a procedure with inspect, not with obtain. Okay, another question from Ankita. So I have two questions. Number one, can I use abbreviations financial statements for financial statements? Secondly, what percentage is considered material with respect to profit before tax and total assets? See, one time you need to write financial statements in full and in the bracket write FS. Then throughout your paper, you can use FS. So one time you have to use the full form, then in the bracket put the abbreviation, whatever the abbreviation is, and then use throughout the paper. Percentage, for profit, it's 5 to 10% of the profit, right? And for the total assets, it's 1 to 2% of the total assets. OCO, every non-audit service arise. Can I say self-interest rate because of the income fees depend on income fees? Yes, exactly. For any additional non-audit service you offer to your existing client, there is a self-interest rate because you're generating extra income. Okay. Mariam is asking a question. Can we use abbreviations in the exam? I think, Mariam, I just answered that question to Ankita. I think that's the same question you have. So I probably believe that you must have heard me. Okay, there is another question coming from a student, Tamanna. She's asking, I have practiced the last 6 papers, read the examiner reports for those, and now just reading the 14 technical articles. Would you suggest doing a mock exam under exam condition on Sunday? Definitely, definitely. One mock exam, even that's not checked, but keeping a timer of 3 hours and 15 minutes and doing an exam paper on Sunday, a mock exam on Sunday for every one of you is like very, very crucial, because that will give you the right rigor where you are standing. So that's a very good strategy, Tamanna. Totally agree. Okay, the next question from Makri. Hi, sir, you're amazing. Thank you for that. If I have a listed entity, then CAM is appropriate, right? Definitely. And not emphasis of a meta paragraph. Agree. And if we have an uncertainty with going concern, then an MURGC paragraph is in place above CAM paragraph. Agree. You have absolute right knowledge. Next, um, Manisha, could you please give me a brief explanation of ISQC1 and the ISA 220? I'm still getting confused with one to use in the quality ethic in the question. You need to use ISA 220, right? See, giving the name of the standard or giving the reference of the standard has no marks. So just come out of that. You just need to put your knowledge and relate that with the case paper. So you are not saying in the paper as per ISQC1 or as per ISA 220. Just be out of that. Examiner says there is no extra marks for that. So I think you just need to know the components of quality control, like leadership, like acceptance, like ethics, like human resources. You know the 6 parameters of quality control, right? And I think that's quite fine enough. Okay, another question from a student. Hi, sir. If the question asks me to critically appraise the report and it's for 6 marks, how much should I write? 1 mark per critical appraisal. So you should have 6 critical appraisals, right? Okay, another question from a student, Gurudeep. So for the sufficient appropriate audit evidence question, we basically have to analyze the quality of the evidence and what actions to be undertaken to get actually the sufficient appropriate audit evidence right. Your first understanding is right. We basically have to analyze the quality of evidence and you need to find the shortcomings in evidence. But the actions are for the issue. If there is an issue, like there is something wrong in the case, and action is taken to resolve the problem, not the problem in the evidence, but there might be something which the management is doing wrong in the case, and whatever the management is doing wrong, you have to take an action to get it rectified. So actions are taken for the management, right, to overcome the management wrongdoings. And sufficient appropriate audit evidence is where the auditor has done some lacking in the evidence and you're commenting on that. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, the question is from a student, Moyo, asking, hi, sir, what is the audit risk for a company with a component auditor? Detection risk, obviously. If a component auditor is different and the group auditor is different, then for a group auditor, there is a detection risk. Okay, there is another question from a student. What do we do if analytical review ratios are given in the exam? How do we tackle this? You just need to look at the results of the ratio and you need to find the risk in those results. I think that was just once in the June 15 exam, and the examiner himself gave the answers of the ratio. And the answers of the ratio should have been used to identify the risk. For example, if the gross profit margin has increased a lot, you could have find the risk that the revenue could be overstated or the cost of sales could be understated. So that's what you could do. Okay, there's another question from Makri. A significant component is when it's above 15% of the group assets. Yes, not just group asset, group profit or group revenue. But it might be in relation to its nature. Yes, if it is a overseas subsidiary, it's material by nature. If it is the first year, uh, this is the first year that the subsidiary is part of the group, then it's material by nature. If it is an overseas subsidiary, it's material by nature. If there is an issue in the subsidiary, like there is a going concern issue in the subsidiary, then it will automatically become important because of that issue. So there might be a lot of qualitative aspects which makes the subsidiary or which makes a component significant component, apart from the 15% threshold? Okay, there was another question. I think I missed that out. From Ankita. Do we have to start answers apart from the briefing note answer with a short introduction or opening paragraph? No, that's just for the briefing note because you're writing it in the format of the briefing note. No other question number 2 or 3, should start with introduction or opening paragraph. You start directly. Okay. There was another question from Sam Nasir. For ratio calculation, is it okay to just work out the figures for each year, or we also need to show the formula? No, just the figures. No need to show the formula, no need to show the calculation, just the answer. Okay, Shahid Shah asking a question. Sir, in the answer sheet, while answering for question number 1, do we need to write question 1 on each page until we finish it? No, 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 just at the start. Answer to question number 1 or question number 1 at the start. And then you continue. And where you end, you end. And then you start the next question, you put the question number 2. So examiner knows, okay, from here, the question number 2 is starting. Okay, there is another question. Nicholas, group audit. Should group auditor to conduct procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to justify the subsidiaries is not a significant component? Uh, the group auditor at the planning stage of the audit do identify which of the components are significant and which of the significant components have a different auditor. So at the planning stage of the audit, the group auditor do identify the significant components and do identify who are the auditors for significant components. Okay, there is another question from Aravind. Sir, generally it is said that for a listed company, non-audit services are prohibited. For other services, if safeguards are taken, can provide the services. Exactly. Your mindset, your question is perfectly right. Okay, there is another question from Christabel. If we calculate analytical procedures with comparatives, so we get 1 mark. Perfect. Do we get additional 2 marks if we discuss the ratio and an additional half a mark for trends? No. When you find a ratio with comparative, and you do a commentary on it to find the risk, you get 1 mark. So a total of 5 ratios for the current year and for the prior year. And when you calculate the 5 ratios for the current year and the prior year, under that you start to do the commenting and you comment on each ratio. What is the risk in each ratio? And you straight away score your 5 marks. I hope I'm able to clarify your question. But if you still believe something is missing in my answer in terms of your question, you can raise it again. Okay, there is a question from Mariam. Is it okay, sir, if we don't use spreadsheets and use the word processor itself for the calculation of materiality, analytical review? Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. No issues with it. Okay, there's a question from Ankita. In a question on ethical matters, can I mention IESBA, or do we just need to mention the threats without mentioning IESBA or the ISA numbers? See, uh, let me make a clarification. There is no need to put a reference or a name of any standard, whether it is IESBA, whether it is an ISA, whether it is an accounting standard, whether it is a financial reporting standard. You just need to put the issue and explain why it's an issue. No need to put the references of the standards, whichever standards. Examiner says there is no mark for it. So please don't waste time on that and such things. Okay. The next question. So what is more effective, the Kaplan exam kit or the past 6 papers? Please help us in the last 48 hours effectively. I think the last 6 past papers are more beneficial at this point in time. Okay. There is another question from Krish. Sir, since it's not compulsory to write the standards in the answer, then how should we write the treatment while answering the material questions? See, you just start the treatment, right? If you're writing a treatment on impairment, you will simply tell examiner that the impairment should be recognized when something exceeds something. Or you should tell examiner that if there is an intangible asset which has a definite life, then it should be amortized over its useful life. See, I didn't spoke of as per ICE 38. I didn't spoke of as per ICE 36. I even didn't spoke of as per the relevant standard. You just start directly writing the treatment. Okay, so Gina, so what is the reason for non-disclosure for going concern? The reasons why the company doesn't give disclosures for going concern, because see, the management bonuses are connected with the company's performance, and if they give disclosures of going concern, they might not get the bonuses. I think self-interest is one of the reason, uh, and mostly the management wants to fabricate the company's position. They want to show a better position to the shareholder to deceive them. They don't want to tell the shareholder that the company is closing down. So I think they have their own self-interest and their own egoism, which comes in way of not giving a disclosure for or foregoing concern. Okay, Omer Alam. Sir, audit risk or business risk? Guess, please. Uh, Probably audit risk. Okay, the next question. Okay, what is included in the planning stage? Setting materiality, etc. Yes, at the planning stage, you need to devise your audit strategy and your audit plan. It includes identifying the risky areas, performing analytical procedures, and determining the materiality level. Okay, another question. Abdulaziz, which webinar can I find the critical appraisal of the audit report? Again, very difficult to recall that, honestly. If any student can help Abdulaziz out with it. Okay. Uh, so important other assignments for March 21, Umair. I've posted my important tips for March 21 on my Facebook page, Umair. I hope you got them. But minus the review of prospective financial information, all other assignments are important for this time. If a student fails in late 40s, what's the main reasons? Lack of practice, lack of a good answer. Your answer quality is not good. I would not say it's bad, but it's like satisfactory. You need to improve upon your answer quality. Okay. uh, Makri, outsourcing, service organization, either payroll or internal audit. What are the risks for auditor? The risk for auditor, if you're finding the audit risk, again, it's a detection risk. The detection risk, if there is something outsourced, then access to the service organization is something which can create problems, or access to evidence is something which can create problems for the auditor. So it might increase your detection risk as an auditor in terms of outsourcing. Okay. A question from Sirhan. So materiality gap is 4 marks. What if I use a trend comparing figures? Will I get an extra half a mark? Definitely. There is an extra half a mark for every additional trend you identified. But even if you're finding some trends, you will continue to score extra half a mark. But again, those marks are capped up to 3 even. Okay, an interesting question from Mariam. Sir, from where can we get the mock exam? I think you can use any of the past paper as your mock exam. Preferably the September, December 20 exams should be used as your mock exams. Okay, do you offer mock exams? Honestly, no, because constraint of time. I do check assignments for my regular students who have taken regular courses from me, but I don't do mock exams considering the constraint of time. And it's humanly impossible for me to check so many mock papers. Another question from Nicholas: joint audit. So, any real case of practicals to share? Sir, how's the audit report express opinions when there are more than one auditor? Opinion is one, right? There are two signatures. One opinion. Uh, the joint audit means both are working together. So they issue one opinion, but there are two signatures. Signature of the audit firm one and the signature of the audit firm two. Okay, there is another question from Anishta asking, Sir, audit risk or business risk for this exams, you guess? I didn't hear your answer due to the connection issues. Audit risk. But again, that's just a guess, right? Not a guarantee. Sujina, if the figure is not given and disclosure is not given, the going concern will be an adverse opinion. If the going concern disclosure is not given, the material uncertainty relating to going concern is not disclosed, then definitely adverse opinion. Okay. Uh, There is another question. Azan, probably I'll answer your questions after the March exams are over because you're appearing for June exams. So I'm just holding your questions and I will be having a proper discussion with you right after the March exams. So for any other I've missed out during the course of my webinar, my live session today. I hope you all had a productive Q&A session so far. I think I've tried to answer most of your queries. And I believe you got the right answers to your queries, which must have given you a clear mindset for your upcoming exams on Monday. If you can just share your feedback on that. So, have you been able to find the right answers to your questions? Because there were loads and loads of questions. So I was just taking a question and answering it, and moving towards the next question, right? So I must have omitted some questions even, but I tried my best to get every question in order, right? Uh, okay, the questions are now coming in again. A question from David, please, where I can get the summary of safeguards on my WhatsApp groups, the student WhatsApp groups. Uh, Another question from a student, for the matters significant in the audit, CAM for listed and EOM for non-listed. Is that correct? CAM is for listed for significant matters. EOM is not like CAM. EOM is not like CAM. EOM only comes for significant disclosures in the notes to the financial statement. CAM is for significant matters, which includes significant. So CAM, right? EOM is just a significant disclosure in the notes to the financial statement, and you give a EOM, right? And yes, EOM is for a non-listed company. Okay, important standards to go through: ICE 36, 37, 38, IFRS 2, share-based payment, investment property, revenue recognition, leases, goodwill, IFRS 3, business combination, uh, government grant. They're all important standards, right? Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that feedback, because I'm waiting for feedback, moving towards the last few moments where I need to wish you best of luck for your upcoming exams and your feedback. Christabel is saying thank you. There is another uh, student saying thank you very much, very useful. Another student, Umer, saying you are amazing, sir, grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Umer, for that. Tamana is saying this has been great. Thank you. Another student saying super triple A Q&A, very valuable. Thank you, and thank you again. Thank you so much for that. Another question coming from Pardeep saying thank you. Uh, Mariam is saying your resources are helpful. Okay, there is a question coming in. I just need to take that first. Shahid Shah. So kindly confirm in which part do we need to answer the ratios, like in ROM or audit risk, both in an audit risk question or in a ROM question, if asked for, not every time. If the question says you should utilize the analytical procedure, then only you calculate the 5 ratios in the question on audit risk or ROM, right? Okay. Thank you very much for your feedbacks on the session today. Thank you very much, Mariam, for sharing your feedbacks. Uh, Okay, there's a question from Harold. Sir, hello, sir. My exam techniques have become like your after listening to your P2P sessions. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I wish you success, Harold. Okay, another comment from Anshita. Thank you, sir. This was very helpful. May God bless you. Thank you, and may God bless you as well. Okay, there's another question from uh, Zendine. I did all the last 6 exams. What do you think is better to do in the last 2 days? Read articles or do the mock exam? Do mock exams. Do mock exams. That's better. Uh, okay. There is another question from okay, Makri saying you're the best, sir. Thank you so much for that. Appreciations. Just need to find some questions in the last moment. Okay, there's another question coming from Oko. For non-listed company, is it okay assuming management responsibility with safeguard? Listed, I think even in non-listed companies, taking on management responsibility is a bit of a subjective matter, but you can take on with some appropriate safeguards in place. Okay, if I write obtain for a procedure, is it I get marks? You will, but I normally believe obtain is not the right way to start a procedure. Okay. Another question from Nicholas. Audit opinion. Adverse and disclaimers both are material and pervasive, right? But adverse should it be worse? As auditor expressed that we do. As auditor expressed that they do not express an opinion. Disclaimers just unable to form right. No, disclaimer is we are not expressing an opinion. So a disclaimer is like worst, and adverse is the financial statement as a whole do not give a true and fair view. So adverse is when there is a material misstatement, which is material and pervasive. And disclaimer is when you are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, which is material and pervasive, right? Okay, thank you very much. I'm just moving towards the conclusion of the session, uh, and I just want to wind up things for today. 48 hours from now, you will be in the real exam scenario for AAA March 2021 exams. I think over the last few months and weeks, you must have given your right time to AAA. You must have utilized the right time and resources to study for AAA. And at this point in time, when your exams are 48 hours away, you just need to fine tune yourself. I don't think so. You should take on something extra now. Either you relax, or you do a mock exam, or you do multiple mock exams. I think that's the right strategy at this point in time. And you should give some time for relaxation, because if your mind is not relaxed, it might not work to the optimum on the day of exam, which can be a big disaster. So honestly, I believe all of you can make it, but you need the right decisions in the exam, on the exam day. Any one of you who takes the right decision within 3 hours, who takes the right judgments in 3 hours, and who don't panic. See, there might be something you don't know in the paper. Leave it, move forward. There might be something you get stuck with. Leave it, move forward, because there might be opportunities. You need to grab opportunities to pass the paper. Now, in a 100 marks paper, if you don't know 10 marks, look at the 90 marks. You have opportunities in 90 marks to take your 50 marks and pass the AAA paper. So a lot of time, the students just get stuck or just come to panic when they see there is something they don't know. If there is something you don't know, sideline. Look at the things you know and try to answer them to the best you can, so that you can score and fetch your 50 marks. That is very, very important. Christabel, interesting question. Uh, can someone attain 70 marks? Just in the December 2020 exams, there was one of my student taking the online classes from my association with Pak School of Online Learning, Ikra Shahid from Pakistan, and she scored 72 marks. So 60, 67, 68, and plus 67, 68 are tremendous marks in AAA paper. And a lot of time, my students in the prior exam settings, I think even in the last exam setting, December 2020, one of my students from Tabani School of Accountancy for NAS, she scored 69 marks in the AAA paper, and Ikra scored 72 marks. So it's possible. So they are just human beings like you. So if they can do it, you can do it. You just need the right exam strategy. You just need the right exam preparation. And at the end of the day, it's just the three uh, it's just the 3 hours in the exam hall, which you need to focus on and where you need to get through, right? So honestly, I will not take much of your time now. I want to wish you best of luck for your upcoming exams on Monday. And I wish you all success in your upcoming exams on Monday. I've been with all of you in my webinar, which I did for ACCA Pakistan, which was on the 2nd of February. I hope you've all watched that. I've been very active on my Facebook, discussing things with you, sharing things for you, just to give you the right mindset for the AAA exam. And over the last 72 hours, I've done a couple of live sessions on AAA just for addressing your queries and your questions you have for AAA ahead of your exams on Monday. So I believe you are um, you're all set for your exams on Monday, and you should be optimistic. You should face the challenge, because see, AAA is a challenging paper, and whoever overcome the challenge with calmness of mind, peace of mind, with the right decisions in the 3 hours, and writing a very good answer, connecting the answer with a case study, not writing a generic answer, not writing a hypothetical answer, you will get through the AAA paper. The more you live near to the case, the more you live near to the case, you are a better student to pass. But the more you go far away from the case, you might fail. You will definitely face. So the only success, the way to success in AAA, sorry, is that your answer is close to the case. Your answer is connected to the case. Your answer is synced to the case, and your answer is is like coming out of the case study. That is a wonderful answer. The more you write the bookish knowledge, the more you write the bookish stuff, the more you write the rote learn stuff, you are taking yourself away from success and victory in the triple A paper. So case specific, I hope that is my golden words at this point in time. Case specific answers. Case specific answer is the key to success in the AAA paper. And also note it down that completing a 100% paper is impossible. Even if you manage to complete 90%, that's wonderful. But don't just spend too much time on one question. Give every question the time it have. If the time gets over, start the new question. Don't just go after completing one question and spoil your exam sitting. Every question, in every question, you have an opportunity. But if you are spending over time on one question, you are compromising, or you are putting at risk the opportunities you have in the question number 2 and in the question number 3. So please don't spend over time on one question. Every question has a designated time. I have talked about time management so many times in my webinar, even. Try to give a stipulated time to every question. So if the time ends for one question, stop and move to the next one. So you have opportunities, right? In every question, in every question, look at those opportunities. There might be a part A, there might be a part B, there might be a part C, which is an opportunity for you. So try to find your opportunities which can help you get the 50 marks in the AAA paper. That is your first barrier, and then you can excel on it. So I hope you had a good session today. At this point in time, I believe the session was planned in an emergency, in an ad hoc basis, and was circulated to all the students that we are having a session today, just for an effective discussion with all of you who are appearing for exams on Monday. And I'm so very happy that you have given a tremendous response to this live session on my YouTube channel. And you can still explore my Facebook page, still explore my YouTube channel. There's plenty for you if someone is interacting me for the first time. And if someone knows me, you must already be part of my social media and getting to know my tips and techniques for the AAA exams, right? Thank you so very much, all of you. And thank you so very much for being part of the session. I wish you all success. And my sincere prayers are with all of you that you come out with success in the March 2021 exams. So I'm Kashif Kamran, your tutor, signing off from this YouTube live session on all you need to know about the AAA exams upcoming for March 2021. If any of your question wasn't addressed, because there was loads of questions, you can still I will still try to find a time to address your questions after the session ends today. And once again, best of luck. Stay safe. Keep yourself protected, and be healthy ahead of your exams on Monday. Don't fall ill, and everything will go in the perfect order. Thank you so very much, all of you. And thank you very much, Manisha. Thank you very much, everyone, for appreciating the session. And it's your tutor saying you goodbye. Take care. Allah Hafiz, all of you.